It is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025, and I am here for another live stream. And welcome back to you. Well, I have been reading a lot of articles about Israel lately. That's motivated in large part by, well, I have a general interest in history, but also um, particularly what's been discussed on this live stream the last one or two times. There's been a significant amount of discussion about Israel, in particular with Darwin in the chat. And that discussion has motivated me to learn more about Israel. So I spent a lot of time between the last live stream and this one reading about Israel. More specifically, I read about the Six-Day War in 1967. And I also read the Hamas Charter from 1988, which was revised. Well, actually, I don't know if it would be considered a revision, but a new charter was issued in 2017. I don't think the original charter was officially revoked, but in any case, they did come out with a new charter. But I didn't read the newer one. I only read the original one from 1988. Maybe I'll read the newer one later. I read an article about Zionism and those, I think those are the main ones that I read. And I rewatched a video from the Ayn Rand Institute that I had mentioned in a previous stream. It's titled, "Did Israel Steal Palestinian Land?" or something like that. It's the most viewed video on their channel. It has over 3 million views. And I mentioned that video in a previous live stream, and I went back and rewatched that. So I've been learning a lot about Israel. So maybe I'll talk more about that today, at least a little bit, I think, because there was a comment that Darwin left on the last video, and I think I want to say something in reply to that. So that's one thing that's been on my minds. And if there's any topics that you all would like to discuss, I invite you to raise them. Feel free to mention it in the chat. And as usual, I have a call-in line to Zoom, and I put the link to the Zoom call in the chat, and I just pinned it so it doesn't get lost. So if anyone wants to call in, then feel free to click on that link, and also please let me know in the chat, the YouTube chat, if you want to call in, so then I will more likely see that there's someone who wants to come on Zoom. Okay. So see, we got a few people here already. I guess I could start by addressing Darwin's comments, since we don't have any other comments yet, or we don't have any chat messages yet. I notice Yaron Brook is also streaming right now. So I don't know if some people who are over there, uh, maybe there's some overlap in viewership, because I've said a few times on my stream that I recommend Yaron Brook's show. I watch it a lot, probably more than any other show. And I know some people have participated in both channels, like Friend Harper. Sometimes he's called in to my show or been in the chat, and I know he's also participated in your on show on the super chat. But Euron started his show, I think, about 2 hours ago. So I think his shows usually, sometimes they go for longer than 2 hours, but usually not much longer than that, I think. So maybe some people will come over here from there after his show ends. Oh, it looks like he's just ending it up now. All right, yeah, it looks like it. Oh, it says stream ended 8 minutes ago. Okay, so well, I don't know if people maybe they already had their objectivist or Ayn Rand fix for the day, and one show is enough. So, or maybe some people still have an appetite for more, or some people maybe they came in late to his show. You don't know when people are going to pop in or pop out. So, in any case, if you are coming over from the Euron Brooks show, welcome to the Dan Norton show live, where you can call in or chat with me. Okay, so let's see if that looks like they're, yeah, no one's chatted anything yet. So I think what I will do is start off by addressing Darwin's comment. I don't know if Darwin is here. I started today a little bit later than I usually do, I think, about 3 p.m. Pacific time. I think usually I start a little earlier. Um, so I don't know if that affects anyone's schedules. I was thinking it's actually, I'm more likely to get Europeans probably if I start a little earlier because they're like 7 or 8 or 9 hours ahead. So probably this is bedtime for many of them. Um, but I remember there was once someone in Belgium who said it was 1 a.m. his time. So maybe some Europeans will still come by. It's been nice to see some of them. I think Chachi might be one of them who's from Europe. He's participated in some of my he's asked some questions which I've indicated in the description. So I try to break down the topics by description after the show if I have time. And I started indicating who actually raised a certain topic, and his name comes up there in the description from the last show. Okay, so let's see. Any other? I'm looking at my notes of things I might discuss. I made a little list, and I think I'm just going to go to Darwin's comment. And for this, I will do a screen share. At least I will attempt a screen share. It's not a very long comment, but it just might be nice to actually see it, get something visually different. So, so let me try to bring that up. And this is related to Israel, which Darwin and I were discussing last time. All right. Share sound. Oh yeah, I want to share the sound also because I want to play a little bit of what I say in that clip that he actually includes a timestamp in his comment. So now I just gotta choose the correct window to share. Okay. I think I got that now. And let me check one other thing. Okay. All right, I think it's ready to go. Share. Okay, should be sharing my screen now. And I'm just looking at my phone to verify that it's displaying properly. Okay, looks like it's got me in the corner there now. Okay, good. So this is the video from last time, and there you can see the list of title or the list of topics in the title. So this is Israel, which came up relatively early in the show. And if we scroll down here to the comments section, here's a comment from Darwin. So Darwin says, Dan, come on. Can you prove that 2.3 million people, quote, want to kill the Jews, unquote? So that's he's quoting me. And I wasn't sure exactly what he was referring to. I had an idea, but I just wanted to be sure. So I replied to him and I said timestamp. And then he tells me it was around 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 50 seconds. And then he put in the actual timestamp. If you put it in this format, then YouTube will automatically turn it into a link. And then that'll take you exactly to that spot. And then I just said, maybe I'll reply in my next live stream. So here I am replying in my next live stream. And that was it for that. There were some other comments here, but sometimes I just don't have time to reply to comments by text. And I like to reserve it for just the next live stream. So if I had more time, I might say more here in the comments themselves. But um, I often don't have time to engage much in the comments. So at least in this case, I kept my replies pretty brief and just was asking for references. And I thought in this case, I would just reply in the next live stream. So I want to go to this point, actually a little before it, in the last live stream, just to give a little more context. And actually, after the part that he quotes, I also, I think I'll probably also want to continue it a bit longer than this part that he quotes. Okay, now I just hope the sound works. Let me just do a quick test to make sure it's coming through. And then I guess I'll rewind to the spot I want to be at, which is here about 107.24. Okay, so let me play just a few seconds of this to see if I'm getting the sound. And then I guess I'll rewind to the spot I want to be at, which is here about 107.24. By the way, you might be hearing me on my phone before I've hit play. um, Sorry if that's confusing or annoying. All right, I'm going to play some of this now. And then Darwin says, however, when they constantly violate their neighbor's sovereignty, the claim is hollow. All right, that should be enough for me to test this. Okay, looks like that's going to work. All right, so now I'm going to play the the part you just heard, and then a little bit more to the part where he quotes me. It's not long. It's maybe, I don't know, 20 seconds or so, something like that. Okay, here we go. And then Darwin says, however, when they constantly violate their neighbor's sovereignty, the claim is hollow. Uh, oh, I'm not sure. I mean, are you talking about people in the West Bank, people in Gaza? I mean, these are people, at least in Gaza, many of them who want to destroy Israel and kill the Jews, right? Okay, that's the part he quoted. Kill the Jews, right? Okay. Now, he asked me, can you prove that 2.3 million people, quote, want to kill the Jews, unquote? Now, did I say that 2.3 million people want to kill the Jews? I guess 2.3 million is a reference to the population of Gaza because I think it's roughly that. I looked it up earlier today and I think it said 2.1 something million. And um, so I think that's the population he's referring to. But did I say that 2.3 million people want to kill the Jews? Let me go back and rewind it a bit. Listen to it again. Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, are you talking about people in the West Bank, people in Gaza? I mean, these are people, at least in Gaza, many of them who want to. These are people in Gaza, at least many of them. Does that mean all of them? No. Many of them who destroy Israel and kill the Jews, right? People in Gaza. I mean, these are people, at least in Gaza, many of them who want to destroy Israel and kill the Jews, right? Okay, so I did not say what it looks like Darwin is implying. Now, he doesn't put the part before this, want to kill the Jews. He doesn't quote the part before it where I say many of them, which kind of implies or strongly suggests that I don't think all of them want to kill the Jews. But by asking this question, it sort of seems like he's trying to attribute that view to me. So I think this is implies a incorrect view of what I was saying. Um, so it's kind of insinuating something that I don't believe. Um, so that's at least one comment I wanted to make about this. It's kind of a hyperbolic distortion of what I was saying, or you might call it a straw man. Um, so now I said I might play something after that. I wanted to play a bit more of this clip, um, but maybe I should wait for Darwin to show up to do that. Um, yeah, maybe I'll save that for a time when Darwin comes back. It's about genocide. So I think he said at one point in a previous chat that he thinks maybe there's a strong arguments that Israel is engaged in a genocide, and I don't think that's the case. And I give some evidence of it in the part that immediately follows this clip that I just played. So if he wants to continue this discussion or this debate, then um, I'd like to hear him answer that. But maybe I'll save that clip for a later stream or later in this stream if he shows up later. But also, um, I'd be curious to see if he has some response to the things I just said about this quote and this question that he asks. Okay, So I think I can stop sharing my screen now. Okay, it's back to me. And see that still don't have any chat messages. So I either have to make up topics or not have any topics. But I'm hoping that this is a listener or viewer driven show, at least for the most part, because the point of doing these is to engage with people. So if there's anything you want to hear about, hear my take on, or ask a question, make a comment, or if you want to call in, feel free to do that. And um, I guess I can also do what I've done a couple times before, where if there's no engagement in the chat, then I can just uh, turn off my mic and camera for a bit until there is engagement. So I've done that a couple times, and um, both of those times, eventually someone has engaged in the chat, and then I come back. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe that would also be a good time for a snack break, since no one's engaged yet. And maybe I can think if there's any other topics that I want to talk about in case you all don't raise any. Okay. Just checking my YouTube analytics right now. I'd like to see what kind of numbers there are for people who've dropped by. Okay. Looks like maybe around six or so people. Not as many as the last time. So seems to be less engagement today for some reason. Not sure why. Oh, also, I guess maybe this is a good time to remind you, if you like this stream or just want to help the channel grow, I'd appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up button. Oh, I didn't even do that myself. I should do that. Maybe that's why it's gotten less engagement, because I haven't hit the like button to tell the algorithm that to boost it. I think that'll have an effect. Oh, I also haven't announced it on Facebook or X. Maybe that's also part of the reason. Okay, let me do those things before I um, do anything else. Yeah, let me go on to Facebook. Yeah, so if you like to stream, then maybe that'll push it out through the algorithm more, and more people will see this and come by. Also, if you haven't subscribed, and I'd appreciate it if you consider subscribing. That'll help my channel grow. Okay. Just typing on Facebook now. Live streaming now. And now I just need to put the link in. Okay. All right. Let's post it on Facebook. And now to X. Also, if you share these posts, that might help some more people um, find out about this. I know Yaron Brook sometimes he asks his viewers to share his streams when they're happening. Okay. And I know sometimes in the past it's actually helped bring some people over because they've told me. Okay. All right. I've announced it now on Facebook and X. And I put out an announcement recently on Harry Binswanger's forum, which I've mentioned here before, the hbletter.com website. And he sent out my announcement about my live stream. Not this one in particular, but just that I'm doing a live stream in general. As a, it's a new era for my YouTube channel, I said in the post, because I used to not do live stream. I just put out pre-recorded videos, and I wanted to let um, his audience know that I'm now doing live streams. So uh, I put a post on his forum, I guess a couple days ago, and then a subset of the posts on his forum he sends out to his email list, and he included mine in the post that he sent out yesterday. So um, I guess that will notify some more people from his audience, and maybe some of them will drop by. Feel free to say hello if you're from the HBL letter audience. Be interested to see if some of you uh, came from there. It's always interesting to know where people came from, like how they heard about my YouTube channel. Okay, looks like a few more people have dropped by. Oh, looks like there was a heart too. Someone put a heart. I just saw one of those hearts in the lower right of my screen fly up. So someone put a heart in. I just put some. I only hit it once and it made a few hearts appear. One. Oh, that one. Okay, it looks like maybe it causes two hearts to float by. I'm going to do it one more time. Well, that time when I hit it, it only made one heart float up. Hmm. Okay. Seems like most people watch on their mobile apps because I have some YouTube analytics which tells me are people watching on their phone or laptop or a tablet or their TV. And it looks like the majority watch through their mobile phone. Okay. Okay. Now I just finally hit the like button. I guess someone else had hit it. So it says we got four people watching now, at least on my phone. Oh, five people, it says on my laptop. My laptop and my phone, it's not synced exactly. So sometimes the numbers vary. So we got five people, but no one's chatting. So anyone want to say anything in the chat, or maybe you all like to be anonymous? Um, and maybe that's why you're not chatting, or maybe you just like to hear me talk stream of consciousness, or you're hoping that someone else will um, initiate the chat, or call in. Um, maybe I should put something else in the chat. I just said hi chat in the chat. Wonder if anyone will reply to that. Oh, we got someone. It worked. Maybe that's the trick. I have to engage in the chat myself to to get people to chat. So MG42 Nerf says hi. Hi, MG42 Nerf. Thank you for participating. You are the first one. And I don't recognize your name, so maybe you're new to my channel. Uh, you want to tell me a little about you? Are you new to my channel, or new to Ayn Rand, which is the theme of my channel? Have you ever read Ayn Rand? Some people, they show up in my chat and they say they've been following me for a long time, but I've never seen them before, like leave a comment or anything. So their name seems new to me. So I don't know if you're totally new to me or maybe you've followed me for a long time, but I just haven't seen your name in a comment or anything. Curious to get to know my audience a little more. All right, so we had oh wow. Uh just went up to 7. Um, maybe people are taking a break after the Yaron Brooks stream, and they're not ready to go to a new show yet. Who knows? Uh, I'm going to try to click this heart on my laptop, and before I did it on my phone, but I want to do it on my laptop too. All right, so if you're just joining, uh, I've talked a little about Israel in reply to a comment someone left on my last live stream, and that was the only kind of pre-prepared topic I had. Um, I usually just I go off of chat engagement, and I see there's some more chats here. So thanks for participating. Yeah, I usually just I engage with people in the chat, or if anyone wants to call in, I'll engage with that. But this is an impromptu show. I spend most of my time when I'm not doing this show, or I spend a lot of my time reading, learning about history in particular. So I said earlier in the show that I was reading a lot about Israel. Um, but I'm not usually preparing something to say in the show. I mean, it gives me ideas of things I could talk about a little bit, but I don't have like a script that or a monologue that I do at the start. Um, it's usually driven by the kinds of things that come up in chat and actually, or in comments. So I had a segment at the start of this show where I was replying to a comment someone left on my last video. All right, so we've got Olex Game Dev. Maybe that's short for developer, game developer. Call him Olex for short. He says, "Hi, fellow YouTuber." Hi, Olex. Your name looks a little familiar. I don't know if you're a subscriber, but I think I might have seen your name somewhere. I'm not sure. But welcome. Maybe I'll check it. I'm interested to see your channel now because you say you're a fellow YouTuber, so maybe that means you also create content. Um, let's see. Is there a link to? Let's see. If I click on the 3 dots next to your name, YouTube does not give me a link. Oh yeah, it does give me a link to. It says go to channel. Okay. I don't know if it does that for you. I think for me, sometimes if I'm not on my own channel, but I click in, if I'm in the chat of somebody else's YouTube channel and I click on the 3 dots next to their chat, I think it gives me a different menu of options. But at least right now for me, it gave me a link to go to your channel. So I see, oh yeah, you got 806 subscribers. That's about the same size as my channel. Very similar. Um, so let's see. What kind of content do you do? Selfish heroes. So sounds like that might have an objectivist connection. videos. The first robot boss, the ramming comrade. 32-second video. Okay. I have no idea what these are, but looks like maybe some kind of computer games. Maybe I'll look at it more later. Anyways, thanks for coming by, Olex. Okay. MG42 Nerf says, my name is Raj. Okay. And you live in Georgia. Okay. Good to know a little more about you. Uh, so obviously you don't have to reveal anything you don't want, even though I'm curious about something. Um, Raj, maybe that's an Indian name. Okay. Um, oh, Oleg says, sure thing. I guess that's in reply to my saying, thanks for coming by. Or, let's see, anyone else want to say hello or ask a question? Um, I do feel like I'm getting kind of hungry. So since there's not much chat here right now, I'm just going to take a short break, like maybe a couple minutes, and get a quick snack. And then I'll come back and see if there's anything else in the chat to engage with, or if anyone has called in on Zoom. So maybe you can take this opportunity to think of some things to say in the chat that I can engage with when I come back. So I'm just gonna take like maybe a couple minutes break. Oh, good. I see we had a comment uh, from MG42 Nerf who said his name is Raj. Maybe I'll just call you Raj. That's a little easier. He says, I was inspired by Ayn Rand from the Foundation head courtroom climax scene. Oh, you must mean Fountainhead. The Fountainhead. The Fountainhead courtroom climax scene. Yeah, just a typo there. Okay. Okay, so you've read The Fountainhead and you were inspired by the courtroom scene. Uh, okay, good. I see some couple new comments. Okay, so I'm gonna be back in just a couple minutes, but and I'll engage more with these chats. But I'm just gonna turn off my mic and my camera. Well, at least my camera. Maybe I don't have to turn off my mic, but um, yeah, I'm just gonna turn off both for a couple minutes, and then I will be back shortly. Okay, see you soon. And maybe think of some other chats while I'm on break. Okay, see you soon. All right, I am back. I've started to update the podcast version of this show. So if you didn't know, if you go to Apple Podcasts, I just thought of this because uh, I said something when my camera was turned off, and I was thinking, well, how is this like for anyone who is listening on the podcast and they're not viewing? I guess some of you, even if you're on YouTube, you might not be looking at it. Your phone might be in your pocket or something. But I guess it's good for me to keep in mind that some people might only be hearing this in audio version. Um, so, anyways, if it's more convenient to listen to the podcast version, I am accessible through Apple Podcasts. There's a link to it on my YouTube channel. Um, and I guess you can also get it on Android, but I haven't tried that myself, so I don't know how you access Apple Podcasts from an Android phone, but I think there is a way to do it. Um, anyways, we are back here, and I saw a few more chats come in. So, Olex and MG Nerf, 42 Nerf, aka Raj, have put in a few chats. So Olex says, yeah, I am an objectivist as well. We are friends on Facebook. Okay. I've gotten to know a lot of people on Facebook over the last few years. I had a Facebook account going back to the 2000s, I think. Like, I don't know if it's 2005 or 6 maybe is when I first started a Facebook account, but I never really used it until many years later. Well, I mean, I wouldn't use it to post things. I would just go on there sometimes and look at posts by other people, like not much, maybe once a month or once every 2 months or something. Um, so for like 15 years or 14 years or whatever, uh, I used Facebook very little. But then in 2020, I I had started my YouTube channel in 2019, and for the first several months, I was only on YouTube and I didn't really use other social media to promote it. But starting in 2020, I started to use Facebook to promote my YouTube channel. And it was at that time that I really started growing my number of Facebook friends. Um, so I'm guessing it was sometime 2020 or later that uh, you and I, Olex, became friends on Facebook because that's when the vast majority of people I'm now Facebook friends with became my Facebook friends. And then later, I also started being more active on Twitter, uh, and those two platforms are the main ones, other than YouTube, that I've been active on. But I also did start an Instagram account and a TikTok account, and I've got a little bit of content, just some few short videos. um, but I haven't grown much of an audience on those platforms. Maybe I will in the future. But right now, it's mostly YouTube, Facebook, and X. And I've talked more in detail about my social media journey in previous live streams. It's actually part of the title of one of I think my third live stream. My social media journey is part of the title. I was just re-listening to that recently because that's one that I just uploaded to my podcast. Um, so my podcast is not exactly in sync. I think this is like what, my 15th, 14th or 15th, so 16th live stream. But I've only uploaded my first three live streams to Apple Podcasts, and eventually I'll catch up. But it's a bit behind right now. So I was just listening to that before I posted it on my podcast. Also wanted to update the description, get some more timestamps in there. don't always have time to do that, but had a little time recently for that. All right, so let me look at some more of these chats. Raj says, then I started learning about objectivism and self-interest. That's after you read The Fountainhead, I guess you mean. Okay. So I wonder how long ago that was, Raj. How many years ago was it that you read The Fountainhead? Most people start with the fiction like you did. Um, I started with the nonfiction. Philosophy Who Needs It was the first book I ever read by Ayn Rand. I was mostly interested in the nonfiction at first, so I read her main nonfiction works because I was already interested in philosophy before that, and I wanted to see what was her philosophy. What, and I didn't want to have to read through some story. I just wanted to get to the philosophy. So I was most interested in the nonfiction. And the unfortunate thing about that is that there were some plot spoilers because she quotes her fiction and discusses it some in her nonfiction. So if you can, I guess that's a good reason to. If you can, I would say start with the fiction. But I guess if you're super motivated to read the nonfiction first and you just can't find the motivation to read the fiction, then better read the nonfiction than nothing. That's for sure. But I eventually, a year later, actually, it took a while. I eventually did read the fiction, and I love that too. So um, I love both the fiction and the nonfiction. But just given the way I was coming into it, it was maybe for me, it made most sense to start with the nonfiction. I read it during the summer between when I graduated high school and when I started in the university. So that was my first exposure to Ayn Rand. Sometimes I think like it inoculated me. It was like getting a vaccine for or something for the what I was going to be hit with once I entered the university. Because she talks a lot about how she has a radical philosophy, which is very different than what's typically taught these days in academia, and she's challenging that. And so I felt like I was kind of building up inoculation from what I was going to be faced with once I got to the university. I kind of had a chip on my shoulder going in, and I guess I was kind of combative, and that caused some problems. I think this is common with many people who are new to Ayn Rand. They get very fired up at the beginning, and they get in these heated arguments. I certainly did, but I didn't really enjoy that. Like it wasn't a pleasant feeling to be always in this heated or very confrontational, combative state of mind. So I eventually cooled down and I decided, I don't want to be in a nasty, combative mental state all the time. I want to enjoy my life. So I have to find some other way to um, enjoy my love of Ayn Rand's ideas. And if I can't change someone else's minds about it, I get in arguments, and I just have to accept. People have their own free will and their own view of things, and there's only so much I can do, and it's not worth like ruining my day, putting myself in a bad mood because someone else sees things differently, and I can't convince them. So that my primary purpose in life is happiness, and that's part of objectivism. Happiness is the highest moral purpose, Ayn Rand says in one place. And if the way you're engaging with her material or carrying it out or trying to promote it to others is not making you happy, if it's ruining relationships that don't need to be ruins, then maybe it's a good idea to um, rethink your approach to trying to spread Ayn Rand's ideas, if that's something you're even interested in, right? There's no duty to try to uh, spread these ideas. You might find that it's in your self-interest to do so, but there are different ways of doing that. You don't necessarily have to get into arguments or debates with people. You could promote someone else who does that. Yeah, you could, send money to a think tank like the Ayn Rand Institute that promotes Ayn Rand and kind of outsource the job of promoting Ayn Rand to someone else. Or you could promote independent YouTubers like me. I do have a Patreon and PayPal accounts, and some people have contributed to those, so thank you. Or you might decide you want to do some of it yourself, but it's just important to do whatever is going to add to your life, make yourself able to live a happy kind of life. All right, glad to see we got some more chats coming in. So let me look at some more of these. Raj corrects his typo. And then he says, does objectivism help escape the matrix? I'm changing the spelling or the grammar here a little bit. I don't. It sounds like maybe you're from India. If your name is Raj, that would be my guess. So maybe your English is a second language. So if I see some things that look like typos or maybe spelling or grammar errors, maybe I'll just correct them without saying that I'm correcting them. Um, but everyone can look at chat if you want to see the exact original statements. So he says, through my filter, does objectivism help escape the matrix? And then he puts in a cry laughing emoji. I tried but never succeeded, he says. Well, what do you mean by the Matrix? I guess when I think of the Matrix, I think of that movie where you're in like this alternate reality, but you don't know you're in it, at least while you're in it. I think that's the idea. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. And then at some point you're given this option of, do you swallow the red pill, which I guess makes you realize that this is not true reality, and then or the blue pill where you stay in the illusory reality, maybe not realizing it. Um, but I guess that's the reference here. But am I in a matrix to begin with, such that I need to escape it? Well, maybe if I'm in the matrix, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't think to ask the question if I'm in the matrix. There's some meta stuff going on here that's maybe confusing me, maybe confusing you too. But he puts in a laugh cry emoji, so I guess I shouldn't take this too seriously. But it is an issue that comes up in philosophy, especially Descartes. I think a lot of people associate this with him. Like he has this thought experiment in his work, The Meditations, which he wrote in, I guess this was the 17th century. So his dates are 1596 to 1650. But I don't know exactly when he wrote the Meditations, maybe around 1630-ish, 1640s maybe. Anyways, he has this thought experiment of like is he in a dream? How does he know he's not having a dream right now? And he's sitting by a fireplace and writing these thoughts on his paper. How can he know that he's not dreaming right now? And then there's a whole train of thought that follows from that. And I guess he eventually decides that God exists and God would not deceive him because God is good. And so somehow, and so that gives him confidence that he's not dreaming. But there's many things you could say about this. I remember some scholars they refer to something called the Cartesian circle. I don't know if I can remember exactly what that is. Maybe he uses something to prove that there's a God, but then he uses God to prove that there was the thing that was used in the first place to prove that there is a God. there was some kind of circularity there. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while since I've read or thought about Descartes. But anyways, there is some precedent in the history of philosophy for this idea that you see in the movie The Matrix with Keanu Reeves. I think I only saw one of those. There's a two or three of them, right, that came out. I only saw the original. The Matrix Reloaded, wasn't that the title of the follow-up movie? Um, I never saw that one. But anyways, Raj says he tried but never succeeded escaping the Matrix. So maybe that means I'm in the Matrix too. So if he never succeeded, then he never got out of the Matrix. Yet I'm here interacting with Raj, so maybe I'm in the Matrix too. This raises the issue of the arbitrary. I think this is a topic which I don't know if I've discussed on this channel before, or at least on this live stream. I think I've discussed it in videos. Um, but yeah, I don't remember talking about the issue of the arbitrary in this live stream. So maybe I'll talk about that some later. But I see we got some more chats coming in, and I want to spread the time around. I don't want to give it all to one chat or one chatter. So I'm just going to make a note here on the arbitrary, and maybe I'll come back to that. Okay. So let's see what else we got. Olex says YouTube has been the easiest to grow for me so far. Interesting. Um, I think if we're talking about number of followers or subscribers, YouTube has been the hardest for me to grow. So right now I have 820 subscribers on YouTube, but on X I have like around 1240, 1250. It's been fluctuating in that range lately. And then on Facebook, I have like 4,600 something friends, I think. And then another, I think, several hundred followers. I guess there's a way you can be not, if you're not someone's Facebook friend, you can still follow them. So I have several hundred followers who are not Facebook friends. Um, so I guess probably over 5,000 if you count both Facebook friends and Facebook followers. So these are much higher numbers than on YouTube. But there's a much different way of gaining followers on those platforms because on YouTube you can't like request to add someone. Like on Facebook, you can send a friend request to somebody, and they can accept your request or not. But there's no equivalent to that on YouTube. It's more of a one-way street. So I just kind of sit here and create content and hope that some people will subscribe to it. But I can't like send them an invitation or a request. At least I don't know a way to do that. So it's a more one-sided kind of deal. So I would guess that's a big part of the reason why my numbers are lower on YouTube. But if there is a way to get more subscribers like that, I'd love to know it. So I don't know if you have some trick. I guess, there's a lot of tricks that people have, and there's certainly YouTube videos, some of which I've seen, where you've got YouTube channels which are just devoted to how to build YouTube channels and get more subscribers. And I've seen some of that. But I'd be curious to know what methods you have found to be effective, Olex. That's an interesting name too, Olex. I've heard Alex, but you're the first Olex I've seen. Although, of course, it could just be a screen name. I don't know if that's your actual name. You don't have to say, of course, but it is an interesting name. And then I guess Twitter or X, it's a bit different than Facebook. It's not like you request to add someone and they can accept or reject that. But just the way the platform works, it seems like people are more likely to, so you can just directly follow someone, and it seems like people are more likely to follow you back if you follow them. So a lot of the way I got followers on X, at least in the beginning, was just by following other people on X, and some percentage of them would follow me back. But I guess after maybe getting uh, a few hundred, like maybe 200 or 300 people that way, um, it's I guess so now I'm over 1,000. So most of my on X. So most of my followers on X, I guess they're just people who saw my comments. I would go on X and make comments on random things or posts of my own, and somehow through the algorithm they saw those, and some of them became followers. Um, so I guess maybe X is kind of in between Facebook and YouTube, um, in terms of like the way you get followers. Um, YouTube is like pretty much one-way street. Facebook is more of a two-way street, and then X is kind of like one and a half way street or something. Maybe the analogy falls apart, but anyways, at least in my experience, it seems like that's how it's been working. Okay, Olex says Galt's speech is one of the best nonfiction there is. Haha. Of course, it's part of the book, so it's Atlas Shrugged, so it is fiction. But um, I guess if your meaning is it actually is true, it applies to reality, then yeah, it has been excerpted into her book For the New Intellectual. So her first book after the publication of Atlas Shrugged, her first nonfiction book was For the New Intellectual, but um, most of the book is well, so there's a lead essay which is called For the New Intellectual, um, and that's nonfiction. But then, which is a great essay, by the way, it's a very broad, sweeping kind of view of history, which shows the role that philosophy has played in history. A great essay, which I recommend people read. But after that, there are excerpts from her fiction. We the Living, her first fiction set in Soviet Russia, and then The Fountainhead, and then Atlas Shrugged. Those are her three main fiction works, or her three largest fiction works. So, and there are excerpts from each of those in the book For the New Intellectual. And I actually skipped over all the excerpts from her fiction when I first read For the New Intellectual, because as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to read the nonfiction first. And it was spoiled for me. It did spoil the fiction to an extent because there are, like in her essay, The Objectivist Ethics, which is in her book, The Virtue of Selfishness, there are quotes of her fiction in that lead essay, The Objectivist Ethics. But it's not like pages and pages and pages of speech, which you get in For the New Intellectual. So I didn't want it to be spoiled that much that I would read the entire speeches in For the New Intellectual. So I only read the lead essay of For the New Intellectual, and then I went to I don't remember exactly the order after that. Maybe I read the Romantic Manifesto, another one of her nonfiction books after that. But anyways, I reserved the speeches for when I actually did want to read the fiction works um, from start to finish. So I eventually read the speeches, but in context. Okay, so oh, Chachi is back. Hi, Chachi. I engaged with Chachi a fair amount in the last live stream. Some of those topics ended up in the title. I usually try to pick out at least some of the main topics that came up, and they end up in the title. I retitle the stream afterwards once I see what topics have come up. So guess I'll haven't decided yet what the title will be, but um, let me. It's good to see some more chats coming in. I want to go through some more of these. So Chachi says, "Good evening, Dr. Norton. Hope all is well. Good to have you back for another session of chats. Thank you. Nice to have you back. Um, Agosti, welcome back. I remember you. You're one of the Europeans, if I recall correctly, maybe from Netherlands. So I guess it's maybe after midnight your time. Agosti says, "Hi Dan, happy to see you're streaming. Philosophy Who Needs It was also my first Ayn Rand book." Okay, welcome to the club. I think I've met. I think Don Watkins actually might be another one who said "Philosophy Who Needs It" was his first Ayn Rand book. I'm not sure, but he's for anyone who doesn't know Don Watkins. He's an employee at the Ayn Rand Institute. He's written books he's co-authored some books with Yaron Brook. Um, so I think he might have said yeah, and there might be some other. I think he's the only one I can think of off the top of my head uh, who said that was his first book. But anyways, now Agosti and I are also part of that club. It's a great intro. I mean, the to Ayn Rand and philosophy in general. It's free online. This particular essay, not all of Ayn Rand's essays are free online, at least in a non-pirated version. But this one is. So if you just go to maybe it's the Ayn Rand campus website, but I'm sure if you just Google philosophy who needs it, you can find it. And I think you can even hear the speech. So it was originally written as a talk that she delivered to the West Point Academy in 1974, I believe. And this is an audience of people they're not objectivists, um, necessarily, at least, but it's designed for a general type of audience. I mean, she says a few things there that are specific to cadets at West Point, but I think in general, it's basically written for a general audience, not someone who is already familiar with her philosophy or has read any of her work before, like her newsletters, the Objectivist newsletter or the Objectivist magazine or the Ayn Rand letter. I think those more had in mind, at least a lot of them, a lot of the articles in those works were kind of aimed at an audience that had already read some or all of her fiction. So they were somewhat familiar with her view, but at least some of her works, and particularly Philosophy Who Needs It, I think that essay is designed for a virgin audience, so to speak. Um, and I think that really comes across in that work. So I think it's a great intro for people to read. Um, Highly recommended. All right. Augusti also says, Dan, I think you fit the picture of a street interviewer in literally every way. Hmm. Uh, what do you think about Dan Norton street interviews as a type of YouTube series? uh, well, um, that calls to mind the early days of this channel. I don't know if you would call them street interviews, but I guess it's at least the closest thing I've done to that. So I don't know if you've seen the early videos on my channel. They're still there. But when I started this channel back in 2019, I went up to people on the street or around my campus. I was at university at the time. I was working on my Ph.D., just finishing it up. So in the last few months of my um, time during grad school is when I started my YouTube channel. And the what I did for content was I went around my university campus, or at least the nearby city. This is UC Davis, University of California at Davis. That's where I did my PhD. And there's a city of Davis, uh, just which the university is part of. So I would either go around my university campus or go into the city of Davis, and I would just find people and strike up a conversation. about selfishness in particular. That was the main focus of my channel in the early days, and I call this series the Selfishness Project, um, which I think might have been inspired by Alex Epstein's project, the Human Flourishing Project. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but Alex Epstein, he's an objectivist intellectual. For some years, he had a project that he called the Human Flourishing Project, and I think my naming of uh, the Selfishness Project might have been partly inspired, maybe only subconsciously, but um, I think he was doing that series around the time that I started my channel, so there might have been some influence. But anyways, I would go around and find people to chat with about selfishness. So you can see like over 30 videos on my channel called the Selfishness Project. If you want to watch some of those. Now I don't always show myself. I don't think I ever show myself like going up to a person. Like I see them and then I approach them. It's usually I've already struck up a conversation, and then at a certain point, I'll say, "Hey, I actually have a YouTube channel. Do you want to keep talking and record the rest of this on YouTube?" And then some of them would say, "Yeah." And then I turn the camera on, or it was my phone. I would just use my iPhone, and I would just record. So but it might have a little of the flavor of a interviewing people on the street. So I would recommend people check that out. Those early videos. Um, so let's see what else. Oh, Augusti says, take it with a grain of salt, maybe, but I don't think it's fully dumb. No, I don't think it's fully dumb. I think it's a good idea. And so good that I actually did it, at least sort of something close to that. Um, yeah, I think that was a good way for me to start my channel. I was comfortable with that topic of selfishness. It's something I had been thinking a lot about at that time. Uh, so I thought it was good to make it the theme of my channel. But eventually, after about a year, I felt like I wanted to broaden the scope of the topics I discussed. I had an appetite to discuss philosophy more broadly, and I wanted to be able to talk about politics and free will or metaphysics, other issues in ethics. So after about a year, I guess sometime in 2020, I broadened the scope of my channel, and then I pretty much opened it up to anything within philosophy. And it's been that way ever since. All from an objectivist perspective, I bring to whatever the topic is what I've learned from Ayn Rand. Um, but sometimes it's more in the backgrounds, uh, the objectivism, but it's always at least in the background, if not coming up explicitly. Okay, so Raj, aka MG42 Nerf, says, see, I got more comments coming in. I see John Wayne is coming in. All right, John, I want to get up to you because, as I said, I want to spread the time around some. But let me just quickly look through what else has come in, and then we'll get to. Oh, RW also is coming. Welcome, RW. I think I might have seen you once before. Okay, so I want to get to those other people's comments, but let me just quickly read through these in order, and maybe I'll come back to some of them if there's time, or maybe in a future live stream. Always feel free to raise something again if I don't get to it. But I can't always guarantee there's going to be time because I try to spread the time around to different people and to different topics. So I can't guarantee I can address all of these, but I'll do what I can. However, there is a way you can um, pretty much guarantee I'll address something, which is to send in some money. It's like a super chat. Now, I don't have super chat yet. That's my goal to get to that point. where I can take super chats, but I need to get to 1,000 subscribers first. So you all can help me get there if you subscribe, if you're not yet subscribed. So thank you for doing that, if you do that. And thanks for the likes as well. That'll help boost the channel and the algorithm as well. But I do have PayPal and Patreon, as I mentioned before. So you can still you can do those right now. So if you want to increase the time or the priority that I give to a certain topic, you can send me some money through PayPal or sign up through Patreon. Both of those are linked on my channel. And then I will give you more time to your question, more attention. But right now, I'm just going to go through. And I do have a couple people, at least, who are contributing now, but they're not in the chat here. So I'm just going to engage here in the with the people in the chat. All right, so let me quickly look through these others. So Raj says, most of my decisions in the past were influenced mostly by society, religion, and especially my family. But Ayn Rand played an important role in my life-changing decisions. Okay. I wonder if you were raised Hindu or Sikh. That's another religion in common in India. I guess so the main ones in India that I can recall, I guess Hindu is the primary one, and then maybe Islam, and then Sikhism, and Buddhism. I'm not sure that's the order, but maybe something like that. So maybe you're raised with one of those when you say religion. But Ayn Rand played an important role in your life-changing decisions. Okay, might be interesting to hear more about that sometime. And then you say me coming to America was her influence. Oh, interesting. So you first encountered Rand in India, and then that inspired you to come to America. Great. I'm glad you could come here. I wish more people could come here, and I wish it were much easier to come here. Our immigration laws need a lot of work. I think it should be much easier, like it was more like it was back in the days of Ellis Islands, where you pretty much you buy a boat ticket, you hop on the boat, you come over. That's pretty much it. Very easy. You don't have to jump through a million hoops or worry about being deported once you're here. I think it should be more like that. And hopefully, this channel will play a small part in bringing that sort of world about. You know, there's other voices out there, but this is part of it, right? I have one video on my YouTube channel specifically about immigration, just a short, maybe a couple minute video, and then it comes up as a topic in other of my videos. But that's one of the many issues that I try to discuss sometimes and have a little influence about. Actually, John Wayne, we talked about immigration in a previous was it the last live stream? At least the recent one. But we were talking about like what exactly should a border policy be? Should it be completely open immigration where there's just like a sign that says welcome to the US, just like there is between state borders, like welcome to Texas if you're driving in from Oklahoma or something like that? Or should there be some kind of checkpoint? I had a little discussion about that, and I think it was the last live stream. And I remember John Wayne had made some comments related to that. And speaking of John, so I see him here in the chat. That's what reminded me of that conversation. So John says, "Oh wait, just one more quickly from Nerf. He says the purpose of life is to pursue your own rational happiness." Yes, that's right. Okay. And John says, Dan, do you have a particularly favorite essay or monologue from Rand? Well, Philosophy Who Needs It is one. And you might have heard I was talking about that uh, a little bit ago. And I explained how that was, I said that was my very first essay that I ever read, the very first anything that I read by Ayn Rand. And I thought it was amazing. It blew me away. The whole book blew me away. But that essay in particular has a special place in my heart, uh, or in my brain, or what, um, because it was my first. But also, I just think it's a great essay. Great intro to philosophy, the subject in general, not specifically her philosophy. I mean, her philosophy is implicit, as she says in that essay, but she doesn't talk explicitly about what her philosophy is in that essay. It's just kind of in the background conditioning the framework and the way she talks about other things. So I love that one. For the New Intellectual, which I also mentioned a little bit ago, I think is a great essay. Um, Maybe that's partly because or I have a very strong interest in history, as you may know. I've I study a lot of it as I sometimes give updates on during these live streams on the latest history. Um, I've been reading about medieval England lately, and more recently, I've been reading about Israel. I read the entire Will Durant story of civilization. This is like a 11 volume series, which I love so much that I decided to write a review of a very favorable review in for the Objective Standard that was published many years ago. But I really love history, and maybe that's part of the reason that I love her essay for the New Intellectual because it's gives her take on history as a whole. It's a very vast, sweeping narrative. It's just so powerful to get that mountaintop view of history, that bird's eye view, and see it all condensed into one image in front of you, or one 40 page or however many pages that article is. It's very powerful. So, I mean, you don't have to have a specific love of history to love that essay, but I guess there's additional reason for me to love it, given my particular interest in history. So that's another great one. Uh, ITOE, Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, is amazing. Um, that's what she presents her theory of concepts there. Let's see, what are her? There's others I can mention. So she's the objectivist ethics. Geez, she's just got so many incredible essays, like world-shaking essays. I mean, this is an epical genius. This is like a once in a millennium genius philosopher. So there's just so much uh, amazing writing by Ayn Rand, um, both in fiction and nonfiction. So she's a superlative literary artist and an excellent writer, nonfiction as well. So the woman is amazing. Um, let's see, what else do I want to say anything else about? Maybe that's good for now on that comment from John. Okay, now we get to RW, new person, or new for this chat at least. As I said, I think I saw you in a previous live stream. So RW asks, should the government play any role in trying to make sure an immigrant will assimilate? Language, fluency, pledging of allegiance, etc. Let me take a sip of water while I think about that. Okay, should the government play any role in trying to make an immigrant, or in trying to make sure an immigrant will assimilate? And then, for example, he gives language fluency or pledging of allegiance, etc. I haven't thought about this question, so anything I say here will just be totally off the top of my head. So, but let's see, do I have any initial thoughts on that? I wonder if, I mean, as long as, like, I don't know that the government should have any role at all. Like, I guess I'm thinking back to the last live stream. I think it was that one where I was talking about the open immigration policy and what exactly should be the policy on the border. So, if it is correct that people, at least from certain countries like Canada, where it's a friendly country and there's not like a threat of terrorists faced like in the way that Israel has terrorist threats across its border, lots of threats. It's systematic. It's um, so if it's not like that, if it's a peaceful kind of friendly country, then if the government shouldn't have any role at that sort of border, then maybe it shouldn't track immigrants at all. So there's not going to be any role for the government to play to I guess what I'm saying is it's in even further steps. Like a minimal step of government intervention would be like having a checkpoint, make sure they don't have any diseases or a terrorist record. But I guess a further step would say, okay, they've checked that box. Now, um, we have to do something further with them. We have to make sure they're going to assimilate to a certain extent, that they have a certain language fluency, that they're going to pledge allegiance, etc. Um, but if you're going to take the view, which I think might be right, that you don't even have to worry about the first thing, the the screening at the border, then I guess you're not going to have it. You're not there's not going to be it's not going to make sense to say you need to require something beyond that, like language fluency or pledge of allegiance. Um, maybe now, as I said, this is all very new to me, so maybe you could make a case that at a certain point, even if you don't think there has to be an initial screening at the border, that um, you should have something in place to ensure that they gain language fluency in the English language at a certain point if they're coming to the U.S. But at least it does not strike me now that it would be appropriate or necessary for the government to enforce some kind of language fluency or pledging of allegiance. Maybe they should just, like, as for the pledging of allegiance, maybe you should just give people the benefit of the doubt, like, and treat them as innocent until proven guilty. And, um, like, even if you are a terrorist and you are a guilty sort of person, you could still pledge allegiance and just lie as you're saying the pledge, right? So I don't think mouthing the words is necessarily going to help. Um, but anyways, yeah, I don't see right now, at least, I don't see a reason to enforce something like a Pledge of Allegiance. As for language fluency, um, I mean, it would certainly be helpful to the immigrants, him or herself, to learn the language. So I think it would be in their self-interest. But um, is it appropriate for the government to force people to do that and threaten them eviction if they don't? I don't think so. At least right now, it doesn't strike me as being appropriate. I mean, as long as the person is not using force. As long as they're not initiating force, then I don't see a reason to interfere with them. Uh, anyways, that I'll just leave it there for now. And if you want to ask more about that, feel free. But those are my initial off the top of my head thoughts on that. Okay, AGOSTI. He says The Hague, Netherlands, and it is 1 a.m. here. All true. Okay. Yeah, that was my memory. Um, he says my work can take until midnight sometimes, so I'm starting later tomorrow, and I'm glad to sit back and check your live stream. Oh, okay, nice. Glad you could come by. I appreciate it. Okay. Um, so you work pretty late if you work till midnight. I don't know if that counts as the graveyard shift or if you have to work like through the night, like 3 a.m. or something to for it to count as the graveyard shift. But anyways, that's pretty late. And then Agosti says, I have to check those old street interview videos then. Yeah, he must be referring to the Selfishness Project I was talking about. Yeah, you might like those. Then we get some more from John Wayne. John Wayne says, were you an Ayn Rand fan or objectivist before university? Yes. Yes. It was right before I started university that I first read Ayn Rand and fell in love with her ideas. So that summer between graduating high school and starting college is when I became an Ayn Rand fan. Now, objectivist is, I think I might have waited about a year before I would say that I considered myself an objectivist because I wanted to just, I didn't want to be too quick to take on that label. I wanted to make sure I had a certain level of understanding of the philosophy. Um, so if I remember right, I think I might have told myself that I shouldn't use that label, uh, like that initial summer, but wait a bit. So, but I think by a year later, um, I would use that term for myself. Actually, I started an objectivist club. It was called the Objectivist Club at the University of Virginia. That's where I did my undergraduate degree. And I started that, I think, at the tail end of my first year. And then John Wayne says, was your university in any way antagonistic to you because, if so, or Ayn Rand's ideas? Um, well, I don't think I'm trying to think of times when I might have brought up Ayn Rand or objectivism to in like a philosophy class such that it might have been an issue. I can remember mentioning her in one philosophy class, and the professor was pretty dismissive of her. Um, and I think he tried to make some sort of joke like there are better things to read. Um, so that was one time. I mean, he was a pretty pleasant guy. He wasn't like hostile and venomous about it, but he was pretty dismissive. Um, and then I do remember a teaching assistant, I think for the same class actually, who was, I guess he led discussion sections and he graded papers. And I don't know if I had brought up Leonard Peikoff in a paper or I had just mentioned him in discussion with them, but I remember he got pretty animated and I think he might have been upset. I think he was upset because he was thinking that I was relying too much on Peikoff. Um, I forget exactly how the interaction went, but uh, he might have thought like I wasn't thinking for myself enough, and I was relying too much on Peikoff in some argument I was making, or it might have been something different. I really don't remember. Um, this was over 20 years ago, um, over 25 years ago. Yeah. It's been a long time. So, but those were two interactions I remember as an undergrad. Um, I guess things were there are probably more interactions that I could remember and talk about if I thought about this longer, but maybe I'll save those stories for another time. It also came up some in my master's program. So I took some time off after my undergrad. I didn't go straight into graduate school. Um, I took several years off and did some other things, and eventually I went back for a master's degree. And then after that, I went straight into a PhD degree. And during both my master's and PhD degree, Ayn Rand did come up in different ways. Um, Maybe I'll talk more about that in another live stream. I'm not sure I want to go into it now, or ever. Uh, some of it might be kind of delicate. I'm not sure I want to uh, go into all the stories, but I guess I'll say there was some antagonism that I think plausibly derives from my interest in Ayn Rand. Um, I wasn't totally in the closet about it. A lot of people who are Ayn Rand fans or objectivists, they're completely in the closet about their interest in Ayn Rand and objectivism, and they don't say anything about it in graduate school because they're concerned they might be discriminated against in some way, um, or mocked, made fun of. Um, and I think that's a reasonable concern. I think there is a real risk of having to undergo some kind of adverse treatment if professors or colleagues know about it, because as you may know, Ayn Rand is very contrary. Her ideas are very contrary to a lot of what is taught in academia. Both the content of her ideas and her whole method of approach, um, I think, is fundamentally different in various ways from what you find in academia. So I think there's a lot of there's a lot of hostility or just indifference. Um, some people, some professors, because of their perspective, they just don't take Ayn Rand seriously. Her way of coming at philosophy is very alien to theirs, and they don't. She's not part of like the analytic philosophy tradition, which is common in the English-speaking world. Also, not part of the continental school of philosophy, which is more common in Europe. Um, so she fundamentally differs from both of those. She has a distinctive approach. Uh, so she's not very well received. Um, and so it's not surprising that there's going to be some antagonism. So it definitely is something that I think it's something worth considering. Like if you are a fan of her ideas, or if you're an objectivist, um, it's worth considering. How open do you want to be about Ayn Rand? Um, if you're trying to become a professional philosopher. So if you want to become a professor in a university, part of the way you do that is um, build relationships with colleagues who can give you letters of recommendation and review your work. Um, so if you're going to have good relationships within the profession with these people, then you really have to think seriously about how you're going to deal with the Ayn Rand aspect of your views. Um, so, and the right answer could just vary from person to person as to what is the right approach. But in any case, in my case, um, I was somewhat open about it. I wouldn't say I was totally open. Like I didn't come in on the first day of classes and like wear an Ayn Rand shirt and uh, it says A is A or something, and it's like shove it in people's faces, kind of out of the blue or gratuitously. But if I was writing a paper on some topic and I wanted to make some argument that was really informed by what I had learned from Ayn Rand, and I don't want to plagiarize her and like present these views as if they're my own. I think it's important to give credit. Um, and she's just, her ideas are so ingrained in my thinking that so many topics that I would uh, discuss or write about in graduate school, there would be something I learned from Ayn Rand that was relevant. This is not to say that like necessarily every single paper you write, you're going to have to um, bring up objectivism in it. That certainly was not the case for me, but there were a few papers where I thought it was particularly relevant and it really did shape my thinking on whatever issue I was writing about. And so I brought up Ayn Rand in the paper, and sometimes secondary literature by objectivist philosophers like Tara Smith at the University of Texas, Austin, which I think is a way of um, maybe greasing the wheels, so to speak, and showing, this is not just it's not just me who's citing Ayn Rand. Professional philosophers have also written books about Ayn Rand and studied her work seriously, published many articles about her work. Um, so I guess that's one tip if you are doing academic work on Ayn Rand. If you can cite other academics who have made a place for themselves in the profession, then it might not be as much of a problem to cite Ayn Rand's work. As I've mentioned in a previous live stream, there's also something called the Ayn Rand Society, which is affiliated with the American Philosophical Association, which is an association of professional philosophers, which has produced, there's a series of books that have come out that had their origin, or the articles in those books had their origin in these sessions of the Ayn Rand Society, which were held in connection with the APA meetings for many years, and I think sometimes they're still held. So there are a number of academics who've done work on Ayn Rand, but it's still very much in the minority, I would say, but much more than there used to be, I think, at least in terms of the output of good quality work, I think is increased. There's, I think, close to 4 volumes from the Ayn Rand Society that have been published now. And then there's the work Ayn Rand's, a companion to Ayn Rand's from the Blackwell series. That's an academic press. So I think those are some of the highlights of academic work on Ayn Rand, which would be good to know about, especially if you're going through academia yourself. But in any case, going back to John here, yeah, I think I would say there was some antagonism. Um, I would say I think plausibly some of it originated um, due to my interest in Rand, but could actually prove that that might be um, a more difficult task. But I think it's at least plausible that um, sometimes I face friction, at least partly because of my interest in Ayn Rand. But I'm not sure if I want to go into the details of that. I would say, though, I had a very friendly advisor um, in my Ph.D. program. He was great to work with, and I was able to talk with him openly about Ayn Rand, and I love that. He was not rude or dismissive at all. I had many long conversations with him about Ayn Rand, and I really valued that part of graduate school. That was maybe my favorite part. I was having conversations with him. Actually, he's on my channel. His name is Bernard Molyneux. He's uh, he's no longer at UC Davis. He left academia a few years after I left. So I graduated in 2019, and I think he was still at UC Davis for maybe 2 or 3 years after that. And then he left academia. He went back to England. He's originally from England, and I'm not sure what the latest is with him, but I do have two videos with him on my channel. Actually, one is part of the Selfishness Project. He was involved with that. So most of my interviews for that this were with just more or less random people I met on or near my university campus. But I did do one episode with him, uh, which is I think maybe a couple hours long, and that was pre-arranged. But I really enjoyed that, and I was glad to get that on tape. And you can see that. I think it's episode number 20 in the Selfishness Project. So that's with him. And then there's actually a second one, I think maybe about a year later. It was during the COVID, or no, actually, I think the first one was recorded in the fall of 2019, and maybe it was published in 2020. I'm not sure, but anyways, um, sometime maybe around spring of 2020, we did a second episode together. The first one was in person, so it wasn't through Zoom. We were actually together. But the second one was through Zoom. He had gone, well, I guess he was still in Davis. He hadn't gone back to England yet, but it was through Zoom, the second one. Uh, so there's also that. I think we talked about COVID because this was like during the lockdown period, or at least close to that period. So that was on a lot of people's minds, and we discussed that and maybe some other topics too. I don't remember, but you can check that video out as well. Um, and then I guess a year or two after that, he went back to England. And anyways, I thought he was a great advisor, and I really valued, appreciated him. All right. Um, so there's some in reply to John. And then John says, um, were, was your, oh no, I read that one. John says, my university is making me take a bunch of trash philosophy courses, and they suck up to Kant, Marx, Hegel. Okay. So it sounds like you're in a continental sort of department because Kant, Marx, and Hegel, those are part of the continental tradition, or at least they figure more heavily. I mean, you can study them in an analytic philosophy department, but they're more prominent, I would say, in the non-analytic continental tradition. So maybe you're in one of those schools. Um, anyways, Kant, Marx, and Hegel. I'd actually like to learn more about all of them. Uh, Not because I think they have good ideas, but they're very important and influential in the history of philosophy. So for that reason, um, so maybe you can it'll help you stomach it if it at least you can realize you're understanding heavily influential people. So maybe it's at least worth your while there. I don't know what your ultimate goals are. Maybe for some people it'd be a waste of time, but maybe not. All right. I guess if you're are you an undergraduate? Do you what do you do you know what you want to do after you graduate? Do you want to go into academia or do something else? You don't have to answer, of course, but these these questions could be relevant to deciding what's the best way to use your time as an undergrad, if you are an undergrad. Uh, and then you say utilitarianism, environmentalism, Peter Singer. Okay. Well, those sound not quite as continental, so maybe you're getting more of a variety. Maybe you are in an analytic department, which I guess is the most likely statistically speaking if you are in the US. Um, and then last comment here from John Wayne says, I agree with Harry Binswanger when he called her a once in a millennium genius and a philosophical Midas. Yes. For Midas, everything he touched turned to gold, and for Ayn Rand, everything she touched turned to knowledge. I think that was the way Harry Binswanger put it, or at least something like that in his article. So this was, I think it was when Ayn Rand died in 1982. There was a series of articles that Harry Binswanger published on Ayn Rand's philosophic achievements, and I think it might have been in one of those articles that he likened her to a philosophical Midas. Um, I think that's a good comparison. Uh, I'm not sure if that's available online for free, but I think they were actually turned into a book recently in conjunction with his retirement from the board of directors of the Ayn Rand Institute. Some of his essays, I think those that on Ayn Rand's achievement were published in that book. Um, yeah, so okay, well, that's the last chat, and I see we are coming up on the 2 hour mark. So that's a pretty average for my streams so far. So I guess this is a pretty good time to end it. And I don't see anyone else coming in on Zoom for a call. Oh, I see RW just came back with a chat. Maybe I'll end on this one. So RW asks, any show or movie recommendations? Anything I've enjoyed recently? I don't watch movies much, very little actually. Same with TV shows. Actually, I don't watch TV at all. If I watch something, it's just on the internet. Uh, I guess you can watch TV on the internet through certain, like Hulu. Is that one of the ways of doing it? I'm not sure exactly. Anyways, I spend a lot of time on YouTube, but that's not like fictional kind of stuff usually, like TV dramas or movies. Um, I don't watch much of that, so I really don't. I don't. At least I don't have current recommendations. I mean, I used to watch more movies. I really liked watching a lot of the movies from the classic days of Hollywood, like 40s and 50s. Humphrey Bogart was one of maybe my favorite actor. Casablanca is a classic movie, which I really like. The Big Sleep was another one he was in that I remember liking a lot. I watched a bunch more Bogart movies. The Maltese Falcon, I think, was another one I enjoyed. Um, and I got some of these. Well, I guess this was before I had Netflix. I don't have Netflix now. I did have it for a brief period of time, maybe a year or two. but I just wasn't using it much. So I canceled my subscription eventually. But it was before that actually that I think I was watching the Bogart movies back in the VHS era. So this was before DVDs even. Um, so before streaming, before DVDs, there were video rental stores. And I think that's when I was watching a lot of the classic Hollywood movies. Uh, so I wouldn't say anything recently, RW, that I've enjoyed in terms of like TV shows or movies. Um, Maybe I should try to work that more into my routine, more art consumption. Um, but Yaron Brook, actually, I think he's much more of a consumer of art, both like visual arts, painting, sculpture, that kind of thing, and also movies. So I don't know if you've heard his recommendations, but I know he's done some segments on his show where he gives a lot of he gives some movie recommendations, show recommendations. So you might be interested in checking that out. Um, I think Harry Benswanger also has, well, I know he's given a list somewhere. I don't know if it's behind the paywall, but maybe there's something free on his hbletter.com forum with movie recommendations. But anyways, those are a couple sources you might want to check out. Okay, it's coming up on 2 hours, so I'm gonna end the stream. Before you leave, if you could like the stream, I'd appreciate it if you liked it, and I'd appreciate any subscriptions as well. So thanks everyone for coming by. I plan to do another live stream, I guess on Wednesday. Or sorry, this is Wednesday. My next live stream will be Saturday. That's the plan. I typically do Wednesdays and Saturdays, at least for now. That's worked pretty well for me. So I think I will be doing another one on Saturday, maybe a little earlier. I'm not sure exactly what time, but if you subscribe, you should get a notification if you ring that bell, and that will notify you of my next stream. What do I watch on YouTube? RW just came back. Uh, I watch, well, probably the Yaron Brooks show more than anything else. And second to that, maybe the Ayn Rand Institute's podcast. Yaron puts out a lot more content. I think he's doing shows, like a few shows each week, and these are 2 or 3 hour shows often. So whereas the Ayn Rand Institute, it's more like one a week, closer to an hour, hour and a half. So there's not as much content, but I think it's high quality content. But those two are the ones I watch the most. And then aside from those two, I watch various things. I was just watching a video, a Joe Rogan episode. I don't usually watch Joe Rogan, but sometimes there's an episode that looks interesting to me. Like there was one recently where he had Douglas Murray and Dave Smith on as guests, and they were uh, debating Israel, uh, and um, that was in the role of experts, and that was interesting. So I watched that one. Um, so there are various podcasts that I'll just watch kind of on a one-off basis, like here and there. I'll tune in for some of their episodes. Um, and that was one. I was actually thinking about maybe having a little segment on my live stream commenting on that, maybe do a live video reaction to a little part of it. You're on actually. It looks like he published a video. I haven't seen it yet, but I saw one or two videos on his channel commenting on that Joe Rogan episode with Douglas Murray and Dave Smith. I'll be interested to see what he has to say about that. Uh, and let's see. Not sure there's any others I want to mention? Actually, I'll just take a quick look in my YouTube history on my phone, and maybe that'll quickly jog my memory as to any others to mention. Uh, see some Ayn Rand stuff that I've been in, like on other people's channels. Um, yeah, I'll just mention that. If I think of anything else, I'll mention it later. But um, yeah, Ayn Rand Institute and Yaron Brook Show are the main ones. Okay, Agosti says thanks for the stream. You're welcome, Agosti. Thank you for coming by, and thanks for everyone who came by. And thanks for those of you who participated in the chat. I appreciate it. All right. I will see you hopefully in a future live stream. Bye.